All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. My guests are with me in studio, Honorable Daniel Manduku, Member of Parliament Nyaribare Masaba, Willis Otieno is here, lawyer and Deputy Party Leader Safena, Joe Halende is here, the Advocate of the High Court, and Franklin Mkwanja, Executive Director, CMD. And Honorable Manduku, let me start with you on this, just to recap a bit. Are you saying that ODM has agreed to work with government?
As per our parliamentary group meeting of yesterday, and as per the resolutions contained therein, my party, the Orange Democratic Movement, ODM, is going to work with the government of Kenya Kwanza. That is a party decision. Okay. And we stand by the principle of collective responsibility. So we are going to work with government, yes.
So does that mean you're going to be given positions?
Well, I don't know what you interpret by the word working with government.
You tell us, you're the one in the field.
But what I know is that we shall work with government.
Okay.
Yes.
Willis, there's something that Weshimi also raised earlier on, saying that Parliament should be dissolved. Is there a mechanism of dissolving Parliament, and whether the President's term would also be cut short by that dissolution?
There's a mechanism that can be invoked. Number one, I do believe that when the people breached Parliament on the 25th of June, the people took away their sovereignty from Parliament. Nobody will ever listen to that house anymore. It lacks legitimacy. And the members of Parliament, by their conduct, have affirmed it that they're no longer representing the people. Because on that day, they had unanimously decided, led by Kenya Kwanza, decided that they're going to pass the finance bill. 2 days later, they were in State House clapping behind William Ruto, rejecting the finance bill. Did it have to take the killings of the 21 Kenyans at that time for them to see sense in what the people are saying? So Parliament has lost credibility, it has lost legitimacy, it serves no purpose other than occupying space. One avenue of dissolving Parliament, if William Ruto wanted to, was genuine with the people of Kenya. We have CJ Maraga's advisory that was issued to the President of Kenya, that this Parliament does not even meet the 2/3 gender principle. The matter has been litigated in courts. Proceed to dissolve. He can use that provision of the law and issue an executive fiat, dissolve Parliament, we go back to elections. In the process, himself, he resigns. And Gachagua resigns. Then, the people will have a new opportunity to elect a leadership that they desire. And
so can he vie again, and that be his second
nothing
term or
will
his
stop
first
him.
term?
Nothing will stop him from vying again, because he still meets the qualification. What we are saying is that we must come up with a process that the leadership that is going to be in place in Kenya must go back to the people and claim that sovereignty. Otherwise, you are going to continue governing a group that has lost faith in you. And that is why in the US system, they have what was called midterm elections. They have a 4-year presidential term, but in between, every 2 years, you have the congressional elections that comes up. A midterm election is normally a referendum on the ruling party. That's why in most cases you find the president's party, if he is unpopular, his policies are not working, the people have an opportunity to vent in the midterm. So you find if it was Republicans in power, the Democrats will win the midterm elections. In the UK system, where we were before, the president had the powers to dissolve Parliament outrightly. And in the UK, the Prime Minister has the power to call for snap elections, which Rishi Sunak just called 2 weeks ago. And they lost that election. Because it's a referendum on you. So also in this particular case, we left the UK, went to the US without a midterm election. Now the Kenyan people are doing a referendum on our entire governance system. And they've said they don't accept it. And let me say this. When you talk about ODM working with the government, it's within the right of ODM as a political party. They're also Kenyans. They can work with whoever they desire. But what we must not lose focus on is that when they go to work with government and even get government appointments, they are not representing the interest of the people of Kenya who are protesting. They are representing the interest, their partisan political interest, which is okay. let them go and be part of the baggage of Kenya Kwanza.
Yeah.
Let them go and take ownership of this sinking ship, if that is what they think will help. Because at the end, at the bottom of all this, there's one fundamental thing that is causing this so-called revolution. And that is, the economy is in doldrums.
Yeah.
And what has caused the economic collapse of this nation is the debt. 80 shillings out of every 100 shillings that Kenya government collects goes to debt finance.
Yeah.
Now, is ODM going to work into that government with extra gold to cushion us from this economic collapse? Are they going to work in there with superior policies that is going to save us from paying 80 shillings out of every 100 to finance our debt? Are they going to demand for an audit of our debt books to confirm if whatever we are paying for is legitimate debt or illegitimate debt?
Yeah.
So they are going to take ownership of Kenya Kwanza. So it's okay. They will come back to the people at some point and they'll have to explain what they were doing in that government. They've taken ownership. Whereas before they were not in the bull's eye, they are now right in the center of the bull's eye, and they will be judged accordingly. Any action that anybody is taking at this particular point will have consequences. And each side must be ready to live with its consequences. So I do believe ODM working with the government, it's very fine, much in order, but they must be prepared to live with the consequences of that decision.
Okay.
And those of us in Safina who've said we will not go anywhere near William Ruto. And we will not go anywhere near a government that has lost legitimacy. We will stay on the people's side. We are about the people's agenda.
Okay.
And we advocate, as I conclude, we advocate for a system that at any given time upholds the welfare of the people, the people's agenda.
Okay. Joe, is dissolving parliament the way to go? Because you said we need to bring everybody on board. Will that bring people on board?
It's one of the options on the table. Personally, from where I sit, I strongly believe that it's high time we need a referendum in this country. You see, there are three fundamental roles that a parliamentary is supposed to play in our constitution, which is legislation, oversight, and representation. What transpired in parliament during the discussion of the finance bill, during the discussion of the affordable housing bill, there were quite issues that were raised, and from where everybody was seated, you could ask yourself, are parliamentary really representing us? Are they legislating? You know, if you live in this country, and here Mheshimiwa can tell you, if he goes back to the village, very early in the morning, there will be so many people at his home, and whatever they'll ask him does not touch on issue to do with legislation, oversight, and representation. It is about mtoto wangu aende shule, it's about I have somebody who should go to hospital, it's about my house is leaking, and very many issues. Now, why am I saying we need a referendum? You know, during the debate of the finance bill, Kenyans were listening. You could listen to the quality of debate. Mheshimiwa here can attest to you, there are certain parliamentarians in that parliament who cannot articulate issues, who cannot give solution to the problem developed this country. So we need to ask ourselves, as a country, do we really need that number in parliament? Do we really need that number in parliament?
So one of your agendas for the referendum would be to reduce the number of people,
the
number of members of parliament.
When we talk about having a lean government, it's not about just the executive. It will also cut across. Also in one arm of the government, which is the legislature. We should also be talking about the numbers there.
So what happens to the constituencies, according to you?
Not what happens to the constituency. It's about now us having a conversation and now thinking about, because if we have 47 counties, I strongly believe we can be able to merge the counties into sub-counties. Because in our constitution, the governor is the CEO of the county. He's the person mandated strongly to deal with the issue to do with governance. But as a parliamentarian, there are three fundamental roles: legislation, oversight, and representation. And if you go in our case law, you may find 2 or 3 cases where the courts have stipulated that CDF is not a mandate of parliamentarian. So parliamentarians should stick to their 3 critical roles.
Okay.
And other people will raise other issues. But for me, where I sit, is high time now again also, we need to separate the real issues that the young people and Kenyans at general are raising and the political sideshow. We need to separate those two things.
Okay.
The real issues that Kenyans were raising, the first time when this demonstration started, it was about the finance bill. It was about to reject the finance bill. The president removed, did not assent to the finance bill. It was about dissolving the cabinet, which was showing obnoxious opulence, and which was in the eyes of Kenyans, it was not representing the aspiration. There was no hope in the cabinet. The president dismissed the cabinet. Kenyans talked about responsibility, holding the police accountable, which I think as Kenyans, we have missed that conversation for a very long time. And we need to have a honest conversation around police reform.
Okay, we'll come to that shortly.
Yes. Now, the IG resigned. Up today, as we speak, the office of the First Lady and the Second Lady has been abolished and no single cent has been assigned to those two offices. We are talking about other raft measures that the president said will keep on following. So those are among the issues that the young people have raised.
Okay.
As we have these, you know, there's this notion that when people are going to dialogue, they are going to dialogue issues about the elites. Trevor, where we have reached in this country, the elite cannot risk that thing, because we are a country where we hosted the president on X. So it is a critical moment where what we need to do is we need to listen from all the voices. We need to listen from everybody. It's not the time of where to have 2 or 3 people on the table and say that we are going with that. It's a moment of where we are listening to the conversation that is ongoing with Kenyans.
All right. I'll come to, we'll talk about the police reforms in just a short while, but let's finish up on this issue of the opposition and politics and the dialogue conversation. And Frank, 2 issues are coming up now. 1, dissolving parliament. Is that the solution? And 2, calling for a referendum. And what will be in that referendum? Do you agree with either of the two?
Whether parliament is dissolved or not, and whether there is actually, Honorable Manduku said there are about 5 areas, which I have not heard, but I've listened to council here, and it's clear that the Maraga advisory is a way to go, and that is something that needs to be activated. Now, whether parliament is dissolved or not, they have lost legitimacy. They do not have any credibility intact with them. And we are going to be falling on a stalemate after stalemate. President William Ruto promised when in Nakuru that he will be appointing his cabinet any time. I think he insinuated this week. I see a scenario, Trevor, where by the time, if my brother here is picked to be a CS, by the time he'll be appearing before Manduku and colleagues, Kenyans will have already decided whether he deserves or not. So I see a cyclic problem for President William Ruto, that he will be selecting and his choices will be rejected by members of parliament as they attempt to align with the people's agenda. So the best way would be that, in fact, the exit of the cabinet, I feel I empathize with them because they were a target later on. The people that were targeted from the word go are the legislators, particularly the members of the National Assembly, for not listening to the views of the people and not representing and aggregating their interests. So whether parliament is dissolved or not, the legitimacy and credibility is gone. President William Ruto is going to have it rough in terms of constituting the next cabinet, because that function, I see it now as ceremonial. The role for vetting the cabinet for the MPs, because parliament was raided, again, that role is ceremonial. They'll have no choice. Otherwise, they will continue to be greeted. And who does not want to go home? They'll have to listen. So they have to do something. on the issue of a referendum, I think it's neither here nor there. What is required is a people-centered conversation. We need to concretize what young people are saying into actionable steps.
Yeah.
All right? And if young people are saying, for instance, that dissolve the cabinet because we don't find competence in the people that you chose, then the question of how do we arrive at merit must be a conversation that this country must have.
Yeah.
All right? So not necessarily a referendum. And if it's about the issues that my brother is mentioning of reducing the number of representatives and such, it's going to be a murky, long conversation that does not guarantee results. So we have very clear askings by the young people that we just need to help put them at the center, lead this conversation on what are the actionable, most strategic steps that we must take to achieve these things that they are asking.
Yeah.
When we have to contend whether the ODM has to cross the aisle and be in bed with government or not, I think ODM is doing this country a great service, because when they have gone together, then these young people have a clean one sweep for both the opposition and government problem that they have had. And they will decide, because I think that is something that we don't just have a misnomer in our social contract, but I feel that it is conmanship of the highest level to pretend to be the oversight party, and then at night you sneak and want to benefit. You can't have your cake and eat it.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't eat your cake and have it. I think it's conmanship, and it's a way of actually helping. It's God sent.
Okay.
It's a gift that Raila should grant these young people very fast by crossing the aisle, and therefore, with one clean sweep, they would be able to fix this country.
Okay, Manduku, have you lost legitimacy?
Trevor, whichever way you look at it, and from the onset I said, let us use a philosophical argument. Never in the history of this country, or even the history of the Commonwealth, has Parliament been raided by the ordinary citizenry. And if you look at it philosophically, again I say, and in line with Article 1 of the Constitution, the people who have elected us to represent them actually came to tell us that we don't have faith in you. And this is despite the warnings they had given us and told us that we shall occupy Parliament. And I said it before, as members of Parliament, we probably lost a chance, because we don't know if they had come with a memoranda. But instead, we ran away, led by our two speakers. In fact, Speaker Amazon Kingi was evacuated in an ambulance. So what does that tell you? Trevor, if I come to your house today and you run away and you leave your wife and children, are you still the man in that house? This is philosophical. What I know is the day I gave a statement and said that Parliament should be dissolved and that the President should reconstitute his cabinet, more than 500,000 people in less than 5 hours supported the idea.
Yeah.
So it is something that is in sync with Kenyans.
Okay.
And, you know, there's a famous poem by William Yeats. Things have fallen apart. The center can no longer hold.
Yeah.
We might talk about law, we might talk about anything, but the point is the common man does not have confidence in Parliament as is currently constituted.
Okay.
And I like what he has said. I can assure you, when the President gives his list of the 21 or 20 cabinet secretaries, the public will vet them. And we in Parliament must align to the public's expectation. Otherwise, we have another risk of getting the public wrath. Now, if the public is ahead of us, and that's my question, if the public is ahead of us in everything, then what legitimacy do we have left? And my advocacy for a parliamentary election at this time is based on a few factors. One, and he alluded to it, because of our political architecture, we go to the elections to vote for certain formations. Where I come from, we vote for ODM, from top to bottom. The 6-piece mantra. And I like quoting the late Joseph Kamaudo, who said once that, after he lost his seat in Kangema, that even if a dog had run on Ford Asili in 1992, it would have won the elections. We are not likely to get good quality leadership when we vote in a certain formation, because then it is what we call the herd mentality.
Yeah.
If we go to a single election of members of parliament, we are likely to interrogate the capacity and capabilities and even competence of every member. The second thing, and depending on how we frame it, and I want to agree with Willis, then we'll have the single most important chance of having staggered elections, such that presidential elections are held every 5 years, but not in sync with parliamentary elections. And that will make parliament really, really be able to do what we call oversight. Because the parliament will be independent. You didn't come in because your boss also came in, or your party leader also came in. Number 3, it will make the IBC busy. IBC even now has staff who are doing nothing, who are reading newspapers and doing Twitter and everything. But when you have continuous elections, and all you have to do is to manage the budgets, the IBC will constantly be busy. Number 4, we'll ensure party discipline, political party discipline. Because then the party is also vibrant. Because our parties go to sleep every 5 years. And I always say political parties are funded by the taxman.
Yeah.
So they should be busy, and political party discipline will be enhanced. But most important, if we stagger our elections also, we'll also be doing what we call a midterm review of our leaderships, as he said. And that happens in America. America has elections every 2 years. Senators do it every 6 years. The president every 4 years, and they're all not in sync. And that is why America is one of the best democracies, because then your election is based on your capacity. You know, what I'm saying is not very popular with my colleagues. In fact, they keep asking me, Manduku, why don't you resign? But they lose the point. The point is not Manduku. The point is not individual member. It is parliament. And parliament is 50 members or more together. But I also say, no, they don't vote for me. None of them votes for me. So I'm still fine. I don't have a problem with that.
All right.
But at least I've started a conversation, which I think any reasonable Kenyan will see my point.
Yeah.
You see, we forget that these positions are not ours. It's like I give you my pen, and then when I want it back, you're still saying, no, let me hold it for another 5 years. No. Yeah. We are holding these positions in trust.
Okay.
And you're saying now that we seem to have lost the legitimacy, let us go back
to the people.
To the people.
All right. Let me bring in some feedback. A lot of feedback is coming through, and then we'll talk about the police reforms. And there's a lot of issues around the police reforms. There's also the Kware man who the people are saying that the police have arrested him in record time. They're stopping the madness. It's time for a reset. We saw Macharia Gaido being arrested yesterday. We've seen the IG himself resign, but then the killings are still continuing. So what kind of reforms are needed there? But let's see what you're saying online. Marara One says, why is the government so desperate to find out who's funding the demonstrations? Why is it always about clinging to power instead of actually serving the people? Okay. Gadua Gashora says, Kenyans have shown grave mistrust, not just with the government, but the entire opposition, who have continually disregarded the people's demands and opted to share power. I fear the hole we are digging will not be filled through the usual dialogue. Okay. Nixon says the opposition is dead, but have reincarnated as a young, vibrant, zealous Gen Zs. May the Gen Zs be responsible in upholding the best interest of the people of this country as they execute the noble duty of the government's watchdog. Kay says, what can we do for the Kenyan Constitution to be honored and respected, given the fact that all the mess and brutality in the country is simply because of the dishonor of this book? Nico says, do we still need 47 counties as a country? Okay.
Don't. Sorry.
You're saying no? Okay. Kent says, 1, Parliament should be dissolved. Every MP and senator should go back to the people and get a fresh mandate. 2, Parliament and the opposition forgot their role of oversight. That is why the president is being greeted twice a week. Okay. Frank Orinde says the proposed dialogue failed. The president was given clear actionable agendas. He doesn't need ODM in government to appoint a lean cabinet, ensure inclusivity in his government to fight corruption, stop extrajudicial killings, stop excesses in executives, stop cat and mouse games. Okay, Willis, let's now talk about the issue